I'm back from vacation. We're joined by PGA Tour Caddie, a good friend of the show, Micah Fugitt, who also is the caddy for Billy Horschel. David Lingmerth before that, Billy Horschel back in the day. And I talked to Micah yesterday evening leaving the show. Micah, thank you. Jimmy Walker was with us earlier, and my God, what an unbelievable segment from him. Let me ask you this. As a guy who's a caddy, makes money off the tour, off of players, what was your thought when yesterday popped early on Tuesday morning?
I was just as surprised as everybody else was. I was sitting at my desk going through emails. I got a text from a friend of mine asking if it was true about LIV and the PGA Tour joining, merging. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then, not too long after that, I started getting alerts on my phone from different media sources. And, also got some other texts from other friends, wanting to know what was going on. And, I just think, just to everybody, players, caddies, just the whole world was just pretty much in shock, especially after the stance Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour has had against LIV Golf. I really think and hope in the long run it's going to be good for everybody, which I think it will. But I just think everybody was just in total shock.
Micah, the players are not unionized. The caddies are not unionized. Like, you guys have no say or protection, and to whatever level everybody should, you guys don't get to vote on any of these deals. You just wake up in the morning and it is. Do you see, now that this has happened, maybe moving more towards that, even though it's always been kind of knocked down in the past?
The PGA Tour, is just completely different, especially us caddies. So, us caddies, we're independent contractors, and we're all day. We kid. We're not just week to week. We're day to day and even hour to hour. PGA Tour players are kind of the same. They're the same way. Yes, they're part of the PGA Tour, but I'm pretty sure they're also like independent contractors. So I don't. They're not guaranteed contracts like other sports and whatnot. So I think there is a way possibly that they could move forward with trying to, unionize, but I just think it's more difficult in the world of golf.
Micah, I thought that when I read a little bit about LIV back when it opened a year ago, that they also, and I was going to contact you about this and I didn't, but they also were taking care of the caddies' travel, hotel accommodations, amenities, etc. Is that something, I know there's some money for you when you got to go. For example, if you're headed to Tulsa or Memorial Tournament in Ohio, you get some of that, but do you know from other caddies that maybe were on LIV, did they get even more than that?
Oh, yeah. I know last year, the first year of LIV, everything was paid for 100%. I heard stories from players, caddies, they, even from their house to the airport, as far as getting to the tournament, flight, food, hotel, everything, completely 100% paid for. This year, from what I've heard, is a little different. It's up to the teams to take care of the caddies. So, if you're a caddy, you want to be one of those good teams that's going to take care of the caddies. Now, I've heard different stories of, how it is, for different, the different teams. The PGA Tour, we get a weekly salary. Some guys are, have a yearly salary, but we are 100% it's on our tab. We have to pay for, our rental cars, airfare, hotels, and whatnot.
How much would you mind if they took care of you and your expenses, not just the player, but if there was some money that also came in that was part of the caddies, would that not just, my goodness, how good would that be?
Oh, for them to fit the bill for us for traveling would be amazing. That would be huge, and even for the players for that part. The players they're on. They have to they're the same way. They have to pay for everything. Every event they go to, they're 100%, out of pocket for their expenses.
Micah Fugitt, PGA Tour Caddie, with us on 365 Sports.
How do you think it will go bringing the LIV guys back in?
I think it'll be fine. I mean, I wasn't at the Masters this year, which was the first event, I guess, with the LIV guys this year. I was at the PGA Championship. I ran into Brooks Koepka, Harold Varner, a couple of the guys I really like well. Say hello to them. It was good to see those guys. Hopefully it'll work out well. I don't, from what I've been reading, I read or saw one of Rory McIlroy's interview today. So it's actually not a merger between the two tours.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deal. It's a partnership with the PIF, which is the Public Investment Fund. And I think the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour are still going to be the separate entities. And what we're going to see is the PIF money is going to, yet to be determined new entity. Now, whether that's going to be something like that replaces the World Golf Championships that have gone away, or just like separate, a handful of fall events, where there's going to be large purses where you have the LIV and PGA Tour players competing against each other, which I think would be great. But, it's in the early hours right now. Nobody really knows what's going to happen, but that's about, from everything I've read and heard, that's about all I know for now.
Micah, this is a sports story. It's a golf story. It's a business story. And obviously a lot of things that were said in the last year that now today, like even Rory said, listen, I still hate LIV, but I've accepted the fact that the money's going to come from Saudi Arabia. It's just part of the deal. Is that the way you feel?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously the reason this finally happened was because of money. So once this deal happened, all the litigation between the two tours, the lawsuits and everything, they went away. That's going to save a lot of money. I mean, I'm sure the PGA Tour, hey, I read somewhere where, the PIF has $600 billion in assets. I'm pretty sure the PGA Tour does not have that kind of pockets. So they were willing to sit down and make a negotiation. The main thing I'm interested in seeing is the guys that were loyal to the PGA Tour. How is the PGA Tour going to look after those guys that gave up hundreds of millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars? Hopefully, they get some type of special exemptions in the certain tournaments, whatever this new entity is and whatnot. But that's kind of, I think that's everyone's main concern right now is like, what's going to happen to these guys like a Rory or, Hideki Matsuyama or Will Zalatoris that were, apparently offered hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's many other guys that were offered, tons of money that stayed loyal to the PGA Tour. How is the PGA Tour going to, compensate these guys?
Do you know if any caddy was a part of anything? I mean, they were taken care of. You mentioned that. I asked you that question. I read about that. Was there a caddy that had any value to LIV? I know it's all about the players, but was there a caddy that might have, maybe gotten a little bit of interest from the LIV?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No.
So you now caddy for Billy Horschel, who has been very outspoken about LIV. And now he's in a pretty bad slump in a very bad way. And his interview at Memorial after the first round was, to me, if you have any inkling of a heart, even if you don't like him, you have to go, my God, because it's human. Have you talked to him?
I have not spoken with him or even texted him since the news yesterday. I have wanted to, and I've kind of, been keeping a lookout for his social media. He hasn't really said a whole lot about it. I know he lives right there in Ponte Vedra, and he knows all those PGA Tour executives very well. So I have not spoken to him yet, but I can't wait to see him next week at the U.S. Open and pick his brain about if he saw any of this coming or if he has any news of what's the next step going forward.
Did you happen to see when he played very poorly and broke down after the 84 that there were social media type accounts that were pounding him? And do you think that with now the merger that might ever stop? Because it's been both ways. Don't get me wrong, but they have piled on him pretty good because he's been very outspoken.
Well, Billy's been outspoken his whole career, and he's been pounded on Twitter. Even when I worked for him before, I would try to advise Billy, hey, don't reply to these guys. Just let it go. I think he's gotten better over the years about not really paying attention to what people say on social media. We played late that Thursday and had to get up early the next morning. I didn't have a whole lot of time to, look at social media and see what was going on or in the comments. A caddy friend of mine, I gave him a ride to the golf course early Friday morning, and he asked me if I had seen the interview with Billy, and I said no. And he told me, how kind of heartbreaking and whatnot it was. And I watched it later that day, and I mean, you're right. Like, if you don't like the guy, that's fine, but you really had to feel for him after watching that interview.
You know what it reminded me of? Not quite, but the Full Swing documentary series that Brooks Koepka was in a bad spot. He didn't think he could ever get healthy enough again. He almost admitted that one of the reasons he took the money with LIV, he had known he'd been healthy again like he is now, that maybe he doesn't make that move. As someone that carries his bag, what do you say, or do you say anything? Because he does have that personality that can snap. What do you say as a caddy to a guy that has nothing on the course?
During that round, when he shot 84 in that first round, there wasn't a whole lot to say. The only thing I tried to do was be there by his side, and if he needed to say something, I would listen, and, just we got done on 18. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, hey, it's going to be all right. And we had to go to scoring, and the media person from the PGA Tour came in and asked him to do an interview, and I couldn't believe it, that they were actually going to interview him after shooting 84. And then he did it, and we were headed to the range, and it was just he and I said, hey, man, I'm sorry. I said, he goes, hey, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another day. Hey, we all have bad days. I know that was a really tough one. We were in a featured group playing with Hideki and Cantley, so there was a lot of eyes on him. It had to be, I couldn't imagine what he was going through. But the only thing I could do was I didn't really say a whole lot. I just wanted to be there by him, and if he did. We had a couple conversations out there, short, but I was just out there just trying to be a friend, because I couldn't imagine what he was going through.
He won the Players' Championship. That was a nice payday for you, and, of course, that's a massive payday. But then you guys split up. You started caddying for various people, David Lingmerth most recently. How did you get back together? Because I know, he's, again, can be kind of surly, et cetera, whatever. What was that like, if you don't mind sharing that with me?
Yeah, we our last tournament together was the Phoenix Open in 2017. He said that he needed to make a change, and I said, hey, no problem, I get it. So over the last 6+ years, we've remained friends. Anytime I see him, hello, very cordial. I've always, one thing about this business on the PGA Tour, being a caddy, you can't burn any bridges. It is what it is. I've been fired. I've had to fire players. So I've been working for this. I was working for this, young Korean kid, S.H. Kim. Started working for him at the Corn Ferry Finals last year, and great kid, great talent. We were down in Mexico. It was the week after Desert Classic, New Orleans. Apparently, Billy's caddy had quit him, which I didn't realize. And then, so anyway, we're in Mexico. We're getting on a charter flight from Mexico to Charlotte, and I get a text message from Billy. Hey, I know you're traveling today, but give me a shout whenever you can. So that evening, I got to my hotel room in Charlotte, gave him a call, and he said, I don't know if you've heard, but my caddy and I parted ways, and I'm interested in to see if you would like to come back to work for me. And, we discussed our terms and everything. And I said, all right. I said, Billy, I said, I got to call my wife. So I called my wife, Teresa. I told her the deal. She says, I think that's great. And so our first week back was the PGA Championship. And after the first round or two, we're just playing practice rounds. My wife said, how's it going? I said, it's just like old times. It's like I never left. So we literally picked up right where we left off. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. I have a health question for you. Do you you can't the night before the first round or maybe even the weekend round, you can't go stuff down 5 burgers and a bunch of enchiladas, can you? You gotta be kind of careful with what you intake your body, with what you do as a caddy, walking the entire course with a large bag on your back.
Oh, for sure. I want to say it was the end of 2021. I was starting to get a little bit overweight and decided I need to make a lifestyle change. So I started watching what I eat a little bit, and nothing special. I've dropped 25 pounds. But, one thing is you just can't stuff your face at night, especially before an early round. Or, obviously I'll eat a nice breakfast before a round, and then, you've got some protein bars or whatever to keep your energy going. But, other than that, nothing special. So,
are players allowed to change things in their bag between 9 and 10, or if they're playing the back 9 first to the front 9? Is there anything you're allowed to add to the bag or get something at the turn?
No. Once you start with those 14 clubs,
right,
you have got to finish the round with those 14 clubs, unless you break a club, as long as it's not out of anger.
What about the number of balls? You can't do that, because I remember the story with Stevie Williams and Tiger, I think at Pebble Beach or something, or maybe at Torrey Pines. Or what about a pair of socks? Anything like that?
Oh yeah, you could change socks or whatever. Or, if you make a turn and you've lost half a dozen golf balls, and you're like, oh my God, I only got 2 golf balls left. You can go to the locker room and get more. Or you can even have. I got a story. I was working for Grayson Murray over in Korea, over in Jeju Island for the CJ Cup. And we were down to our last ball or two, and his manager, agent happened to be over there, and we had to tell him to go to the locker room and get some more golf balls and meet us on the back 9. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. So you are allowed, you can't make equipment changes as far as clubs, but as far as anything else goes, socks or, I know guys they've changed their shirts. Yeah. At the turn, if it's a hot summer day or whatever.
If you're hitting a Titleist Pro V1 or Srixon or whatever, can you change what kind of ball you use on the back 9 or the next 9?
No.
Okay. No. I didn't think so.
Yeah. Like if you have a Pro V1X you tee up with, then you have to finish it with that same ball, or it has to be a conforming ball, USGA.
Right.
No, you got to play the same type of ball, all 18 holes.
Micah, Kyle Louie, who is a great friend of yours, texted me right before the interview, said hi. That. Thank you so much for the time. Good luck moving forward. Hopefully all of this, whatever it is even better for not just the players, the tour, if that's the case, but also for you and those who carry the bag.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, buddy. Micah Fugitt with us on 365 Sports. 5 o'clock.